Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Robert Jaquay. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the Pruyn House, which is the historical and cultural center in the town of Colonie, and specifically about an appraisal day that's going to be taking place on May 12th. Our guests today are Charlie Flanigan, who is the chair of the Collections Committee, and Hank Paris, who is the chair of the Appraisal Committee. Let's go talk to them and find out more. Charlie and Hank, I want to thank you very much for being my guests today.
Thanks for having us.
We're happy to be here.
Now, we're going to talk specifically about an appraisal day that's happening at the Pruyn House, which is the historical and cultural center in the town of Colonie. But before we get into that, let's talk about the Pruyn House itself and just what it is.
Well, I'm glad you asked about that because it's a very historic place, but the history of it is a little bit obscure. It was built in about 1835 or so by the land agent for the Patroon's western or eastern domain, the Rensselaer County property. This fellow was in charge of collecting the rents in Rensselaer County, and in the 1830s the tenants didn't want to pay the rent, and they were getting very difficult, and so Caspar Pruyn, who was the land agent over there, built this house on the other side of the river in Colonie to keep his family safe from the locals.
Now, in some of the history of the place also, I mean, I believe it was the summer home, actually, for the most part, right, for the Pryns?
Yes, well, they only lived there for a few years.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of hard to say. About 1835, by 1840, I think they were out. Caspar Pruyn had died. After he fixed the house and moved everybody in, his wife died, and he remarried. Then he died, and then his wife gave birth to a daughter.
Okay.
That complicated things a lot. But that was great because that's why we know so much out of the contest between that daughter and her claims against the estate.
Really?
So that was
Now, the house is a historic house, and the town, it's part of the town. The town owns it.
It's owned by the town, right.
But it also has the Friends of the Pruyn House, who are the basically the people who
keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
And this was in the 80s, I believe, right? When the house was really in disrepair.
Oh yes, it was. It had been lived in over many years. The Hanke's family were in it for a long time, but around it's 3 floors. And you look at it that way. There are 3 floors of the house. The upper floor was when we got it, when the town got it, was practically original. 1 coat of paint on everything.
Really?
It was not occupied very long. Must have been. They moved out of the 3rd floor probably before 1900. The 2nd floor was decorated and used up until about 1940 or 50. And after 1950 or so, one gentleman lived there by himself. He was the gardener for the governor's mansion, and he raised a lot of flowers and things in there. And it was also an asparagus farm for a while, for a long time. But one person lived on the lower floor. So there was not a lot of care taken of the house. It was,
the grounds, but not the house.
Grounds were, well, the grounds even around it in the last few years. Bushes grew up. You couldn't see it from Old Niskayuna Road. Also, it was it needed a lot. But it's an unusual kind of construction, a flat roof, and the gutters get plugged, and water gets into the walls, and it's been a terrible job to maintain it and keep it going, and it has to do with the drainage of the roof.
So when it was taken over, actually, it was in real disrepair, and it had to be rehabilitated.
Yeah, practically rebuilt the whole back of the house and half of the one side, and did an awful lot of very detailed structural work. Yeah,
Okay.
no one could have afforded to do it. Only the town of Colonie could have afforded to take it on. But it's so good that they did, because it's really a gem now.
Okay.
It's, even though it might need a little help once in a while.
Yes, yes.
But that's the idea of Appraisal Day, is to bring in some money to help to spruce up the inside of the house, the collection. We're basically the collection people, so
Okay.
we're interested in trying to fix up the interior of the house to look much as it did in its heyday around 1830, before the Civil War. That's what we're collecting.
Okay. Sometimes a historical home is just that. It's a home that you know is evocative of an era, and you put things in it that are of that particular point in time, and it's a site that people come to. Oftentimes there's ropes in front of the rooms because
Right.
it was at that period of time you're trying to
Yeah,
capture.
yeah.
But that's different at the Pruyn House. It's a
Well,
mixture, isn't it?
It's all open, and all the rooms are used. We are trying to, the Collections Committee tries to be period about 1830, 40. We try to keep pre-Civil War things in the house.
Okay.
And, but we do use the rooms for everything. It's gotten to be difficult because old houses like that had small rooms, and so it's a house of many small rooms, and we don't have one big room to have groups come in and do things. That's why it was such a great asset when we acquired the Burmaster barn and had that erected there, so that we could accommodate a large group of people.
That's why I guess we're leading to, because other than a historic home, which it definitely is, and there are period pieces in it, people come in and use the facility for functions.
Right.
They also
Right.
use the ground for functions. So it's,
Sure.
it's sort of multi-purpose. It's a historical site as well as a cultural
Right,
center.
right.
That's
And it's a
correct.
great place for weddings.
It's a great place for weddings. Absolutely beautiful grounds. Anyone who's ever passed by it should stop and see it.
Yeah,
They won't believe
yeah.
what's there. Now, you mentioned Collections Committee.
Right.
And you're the chair of the Collections Committee, and Hank, you're the chairperson for this particular
For Appraisal
event.
Day, that's correct.
What does the Collection Committee do?
Charlie?
Well, we're trying to get the proper furniture and furnishings in the house, and someone has to be responsible to see how certain rooms are decorated and what's going to be in this room, what's going to be in that room, and that's what the Collections Committee does. We acquired, when the house first started, we acquired quite an accumulation of things from various donations from people, and well, some of them were appropriate and some of them aren't. And as we progress in history and economics of the house, we're able to be more selective, and that's what we're doing now. We're trying to do certain things to make the house more appropriately represent the period that it was most historic in.
So you all do your homework in terms of what's
Correct.
correct and what would actually fit in that particular.
Well, we try. It's a learning process. Yeah.
Well, you have some extraordinary things here, and actually we're going to look at them a little bit later on. But Hank,
Yes.
as far as this Appraisal Day, it's sort of like a Antiques Roadshow
Very much
type,
so.
isn't
Yep.
it?
Very much so.
Let's talk more about it.
Well, I think, I mean, I know I'm really, I hate to, excited is used kind of loosely, but particularly after today with the appraiser, I think it's going to be a wonderful fundraiser for us, and I think a lot of people are going to have an opportunity to not only learn more about any items they may bring in, but they're also going to be able to see what a lot of other folks are doing. I mean, if you ever watch Antiques Roadshow, I mean, there's always a great deal of interest in what other people have brought in. So we're my wife and I have been longtime antiquers, and Sharon is also really excited about spending the day there too.
Right, and Sharon happens to be the president of the board.
Sharon is
right
the president
now.
of the board. Yep.
Now, this is also a wonderful opportunity for people to come to the Pruyn House and not only have their particular article appraised, but also see what's there at the Pruyn House.
That's correct. The home will be open that day with docents. In fact, all the buildings on the grounds will be manned. So if people are waiting for an appraisal, we're going to try to do this in a very organized fashion. When people pay for their appraisal, they'll be given a numbered ticket. So
Okay.
it'll be very well organized. And if they have time, if there may be the 200th person, hopefully the 500th person.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would be.
Okay.
They'll have a chance to, walk the grounds and not really worry about losing their spot in line. And if they're finished, they can, avail themselves of the facilities at that time. So.
Now, you say it's a fundraiser. What is the purpose for raising the funds?
Well, all nonprofits, you never have enough money. And one of the things we've done in the last year or so is we tried to be more thematic with, how we approach what we want to do. And we're looking at one of the front drawing rooms, turning it into like a men's sitting room. And so we're looking to maybe acquire a desk and perhaps a game table and some other items that would be appropriate for that room in that era.
So
and
this is actually funds for the collections.
Oh, very much so.
and
Yes.
to
Yes.
actually,
Right.
there are a lot of a lot of items we would like, and if you're looking like at a nice banjo clock, which would be appropriate for that time. These things are really very expensive. We don't want to do a reproduction, and by the same token, you get what you pay for, and we'd really like a quality piece, but one that we consider affordable.
Absolutely. Now, you've gotten experts to come in to do the appraisal.
Yes, we have.
Let's talk about who you're bringing in.
We're bringing in Colin Stair from Stair Galleries in Hudson, New York, and Rupert Fennell, who was kind enough to come up today and more or less do a demo on how this whole process is going to work on appraisal day. Rupert is not really he's a consultant for Stair, but not really affiliated with the gallery.
Okay.
Both of these, they're both professional appraisers, and very generously are giving us their time with no charge, which we were delighted when they made that offer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about the details of the whole process, but right now Rupert's going to be showing us some of the articles actually in the Pruyn House
That's correct.
itself,
Yep.
some selected articles, and also doing appraisal or basically descriptions of them and talking about them.
That's exactly what
Right.
he's going to do.
Okay, so let's go to that footage right now and see what he has to offer.
Great.
So this is a Swiss 10-inch cylinder music box. The case has a stenciled cartouche or cabochon decoration on the top. Sometimes it would be inlaid. The case itself is grained rosewood. It's not actually rosewood. So it is not, to begin with, valuation-wise, it's not top of the line. We open it up, and here's your cylinder, your 10-inch cylinder. It has a Jaquay, we'll lift up this lid here, another glass lid, which keeps the dust out. It has a Jaquay patent for, in this case, 1886, which is a safety check Swiss patent from the late 19th century. And there's also a program of 10 airs. Actually, it says 10 airs, but there are actually 12 listed. So it's quite a lovely piece. There's a crank here. We won't start it up again because this particular box doesn't like to stop. So you crank this up, push the play lever here, choose your selection from the listing here. Like a little clock here. Put it on. Speaking of clocks, so that'll line up with what it is up here, which is after the ball is over, and then you can sit back and listen to the beautiful music. The problem with this box is condition. I would say it's in fair condition, not pristine. There is some problems to the case itself, and the mechanism itself, though, is in very good condition. There is a mechanical glitch, though, with the stop and play lever. So all of these facets go into determining the valuation for a music box. such as this. And next to it, we have a really quite stunning Victorian British-made mother of pearl inlaid black lacquer papier-mâché sewing box, which for museum purposes is this glass vitrine so that you can see the interior. Normally it would be closed. For sewing purposes, you would open it up and you'd have your spindles and scissors and needles and cushions for needles, and et cetera, et cetera. Mother of pearl and ebony wheel spools, very nice there. As I say, that closes up. And then in the front, scalloped front, it has this quite lovely pleated silk spool or thread drawer to put in knitting things and such on a lyre form trestle supports. Jennings and Bettridge were the most famous makers. I believe they were from Birmingham. This particular piece does not appear to be impressed with any maker's mark, but it's in very, very good condition, and it does have most of the implements on the interior. So it has a lot going for it, particularly its condition and the fact that it is pretty complete. What it does not have going for it, it is as a piece of furniture, it is not something that is universally popular or needed. So valuation-wise, this table, and we looked at a Swiss music box a little while ago, the 10-inch cylinder music box. This table actually is in better condition. It's a more glitzy-looking piece, but in fact would not have as high a valuation as the music box. This is a beautiful piece of Sev porcelain. Sev was a French porcelain manufacturer that was set up in the time of Louis XV in the 18th century. It is still in production today. Has gone through all the vicissitudes of the various republics, etc. This particular piece has a date on the outside. It has an inscription, Exposition Universelle, Paris, 1878. Beautifully, which was like a World's Fair in 1878. The suggestion is that this was a piece, possibly an exposition piece. One would think that's correct. But you turn it upside down, and here's the Sev mark, which says Décoré à Sèvres, and it also has the S period and the date 79, which is 1879, which is a year after the exposition. So one realizes that it probably is a replica of a much larger piece that was shown as an exposition piece at that 1878 fair. So popular that some people wanted to bring it home. This is a very workable thing in most people's living room or dining room. You can put fruit, etc. in it. Beautiful workmanship here. The central rondelle is relief molded. The yellow ground border has this Rasso, almost Renaissance decoration, which is transfer printed. It's hand colored, but the detailing is in fact transfer printed or decal printed. A very beautiful piece. If it were the original, I suspect would have been quite gargantuan, would have sat on top, the center of a huge Carrara marble top table and been quite drop dead, if you'll excuse the expression. As I say, this is probably a replica, a souvenir, if you will, from the 1878 exposition. Daguerreotype portrait of a Northern Civil War soldier within a gold fill surround. The frame, the surround or border has the crossed American flags at the upper spandrels, and down below a drum, cannon, and then the motto, the Union now and forever. It's a portrait, oval portrait, as I say, of a Union soldier in a cut velvet cushioned case. The case has a central almost fishtail or diaper pattern medallion within a scalloped surround, and the back is matching. So this is a pressed type of pressed papier-mâché, almost leatherette, faux leather case. The value of this is on several levels. First of all, there's a tremendous amount of interest in Civil War memorabilia throughout the country, both north and south, east and west. It's very nice to know who the sitter was, and unfortunately in this instance we don't know who this young boy was, so he's nameless, which reduces the commercial competition, potential competition on this piece. The other thing that is of interest to collectors today is the detailing on the cover. And some of the covers tend to be very elaborate with little houses, little cottages, or even people in rural settings. This is a pretty basic, very attractive cover, but not of outstanding collecting interest. The plus, of course, is that it's in quite good condition. There is some wear along here, the binding, but otherwise in quite good condition. And so it has a positive, it's in good condition, it is period, of a period that is quite collectible at the moment. We don't know, it's an unknown soldier, sadly, and the case itself is medium quality. So that all goes into coming up with a single figure valuation. This is a classic George III inlaid mahogany banjo barometer. It is signed down here where the mercury lever is, or balance lever, by B. Mazuchi, M-A-Z-U-C-H-I. Many of the barometer makers and scientific instrument makers working in London and the other British cities at the end of the 18th and early 19th century came from Italy. They had scientific background and were able to technically put these things together. So many of the movements of these are done by Italians. The case itself is probably British made. Typical inlaid, line inlaid wheel barometer. The upper, there's a swan's neck crest here that actually has been added later. So that's something that we're going to consider when we evaluate it. There's a dry damp dial. Then there's the barometer dial here. I'm sorry, the thermometer dial. This is a little convex mirror with an ebonized reeded surround. The barometer dial here with change, fair, stormy weather. And then the balance dial here. I'm incorrect. I did say it was a mercury dial. In this instance, actually, it's a red dyed water balance dial. That's so that when it's on the wall, it is in level. Condition is pretty good on this. There has been some restoration, as we said. The cresting here is new. The convex glass on top of the barometer dial itself is cracked up here, which is too bad, but can be replaced. Some of the line inlay has been replaced here. You can see there's a sort of a trapezoidal inlay here that probably was replaced from here. Actually, it's not. It's more crescent. Sorry. Here, it's probably been put on in the early part of this century. Otherwise, in good condition, pretty straightforward. Wheel, or I originally said banjo barometer, but a wheel barometer is probably more correct nomination for it, and quite nice value. And this lovely piece of furniture, which I'm sitting on, is an American piece known as American classical, period-wise, American classical or American Empire, which would make it circa 1830 to 1840. It's actually a whole settee, so the seat is somewhat narrow, and we're visualizing, if you can, a early first quarter of the 19th century center hall, American House Federal, or Greek Revival house with a nice wide center hall. These settees would be put in there, so they were not necessarily the most comfortable pieces of furniture in the house. Sometimes they were used for tradesmen who would stop by, and we didn't want to make them too comfortable because we didn't want them to stay around if we had no intention of meeting with them. Or if you were going to have a party and using the center hall for gatherings, it made extra seating available and there and easy to deal with. Sometimes the crest would have an elaborate acanthus leaf medallion. There are two little dowels, plugged dowels here, so that it probably did have something like that and was removed at some time to make it a little bit simpler. Unfortunately, these are very common. You see an awful lot of them, particularly in the Mohawk Valley area. Most of the mid-19th century farmhouses had one or two of these settees on the first or second floor landing. Sometimes they've been shuttled off to one of the bedrooms. So it's a fairly common piece. And as I say, because it's not that comfortable, not all antiques are bought for antique value, but also for certain comfort value level is required. So this sort of a settee, unfortunately, has not risen tremendously in value in the last few years. Okay. So here we have another American piece, really quite stunning, beautiful piece. Primary wood is mahogany, carved mahogany up here, veneered mahogany here, and on the drawer fronts throughout the piece. And the tops of both the superstructure and the top of the piece itself are made out of figured or curly maple. So we know that they are definitely East Coast, probably. This is probably a New York piece. The pulls are pressed glass, possibly Sandwich, the New England Glass Company in Sandwich, Massachusetts. So all of these elements are of a piece and would date the dresser, what we think is a dresser to begin with, to about 1830 to 1840. It's a little bit earlier than that hall settee that we had seen earlier. As I say, the overall look of it looks like a dresser because it's got a swing mirror here for making sure that your hair is combed, which I guess mine is not doing too well. And these little drawers here to put small couplings and things of that nature. But what's quite nice about this, and it's unusual in a piece like this, it's not just a, see if I can get this down here. Sorry. There we go. So it's also a desk. So without the superstructure, this would be known as a butler's desk. But it's just a combination of a dresser and a chest of a desk with all these wonderful little drawers, central cupboard door here with a little pull-out drawer there, another drawer underneath, and the pigeonholes. So it's an unusual piece. It's not just a dresser as it looked when you first walk into the room, but it has this added attraction. The pulls here are pressed brass, which are all matching up, which is quite nice. So it has the combination of carved and veneered mahogany and the bird's eye maple, the pressed glass pulls, the butler's desk, or the not slant front, but the drop front desk drawer, all of which is going to add tremendous value to this piece.
Okay, that was really very interesting.
It was.
I mean, I've seen these things in the Pruyn House myself, and I'm finding out things about them that I never knew before. So, and I hope it does entice people once again who haven't come to the Pruyn House to actually come and see more. Let's go back to the appraisal day itself. It's going to be on
Saturday, May 12th, from
Okay.
10 o'clock in the morning till 3 in the afternoon.
All right.
And they've Rupert's indicated that if we really have a big crowd, that they'll be, they'll make themselves available until everybody, gets their appraisal done.
That'd be wonderful. I see the long lines.
I can envision it myself. And the appraisals will be $10 per item,
Okay.
or 3 items for $25.
Okay.
Which is a great deal.
It sounds
It's a
like
great-
it.
Yeah, because I mean, people have things around, and for $10, you can come there, and he'll tell you whether it's worth keeping. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you should be getting rid of, and some things, not. And
If his eyebrows raise, you
$10.
know that he's really found a treasure.
yeah, for $10, you
Right.
can get rid of some junk. Yeah, yeah.
How does someone connect with you so that they can, I mean, do they have to register beforehand?
There'll be an admissions table where where they'll pay for their appraisal,
Okay.
and they'll be given a ticket numbered, and I think we're going to have an arrangement where we'll either call out or hold up a sign so people will know which number is next in line.
Okay, so people actually just show up that day and the process starts here. They don't call ahead of time?
That's correct.
All right. So we should give them the address, which is 207 Old Niskayuna Road. All right, and I'm sure if they go on the website for the Pruyn House, they can get a bit more information, or at least site recognition of what the house looks like.
Right.
And they're talking about the web page, which we'll post up here. There should be information about the web, about this appraisal on the web.
That's
so that
correct.
people can
Yes,
actually get more
right.
detail on that as well. Now, should someone want to call the Pruyn House, we're going to put up the Pruyn House number as well,
Right.
and make sure that that's there for people to do that for it. But
There are certain things that we didn't want to appraise.
okay, that's
Should
good.
mention that.
Let's mention that. What don't you
That we
want to
do
appraise?
not want to appraise jewelry.
Jewelry or ethnographic art or artifacts.
Okay.
In other words, if you have a Inuit Eskimo carving, while it would be wonderful to see, I don't believe those are two areas that they would not care to appraise. They could, if somebody, I've been told invariably somebody will bring something like that, and they'll either make an effort or direct them to an appraiser or
Yeah.
gallery where they could probably
There's
get.
special fields outside the
Right.
expertise of the appraisers that we have.
The one thing I did want to mention, these will be verbal appraisals.
All right.
If somebody wants a written appraisal, they can make arrangements with the appraiser to have that done. And also, if somebody has a lot of items and would like one of the appraisers to come out to their home, they can make arrangements that day also to have that done. Of course, that would be a little more expensive than the on-site appraisal.
Now, would that benefit you as well?
That was really interesting when Rupert mentioned that to me. He said, and anything they receive for doing that at-home appraisal would be donated to Pruyn House. So I thought that was
Wonderful.
very
Gee,
generous.
that's pretty
Wonderful.
nice, yeah.
So people could actually bring a truckload full of stuff. I hope they don't.
$10 an item.
Well, I hope they do.
As long as you get their money for it. Well, I think that's terrific. I'm, as I say, and we will follow up with we did the footage over at the Pruyn House today, and it's going to give us a glimpse of particular items and maybe some of the environment as well. Hopefully, we can get over there and do a little bit more of the house just to show what kind of treasure it truly is. Now, the house is really going through another phase of renovation at this point in time, isn't it? I mean, refurbishment.
A new roof leak.
A new roof leak.
Yeah.
We're trying to get some of those things
Yeah.
settled in.
Right.
And,
Yes.
get
Yeah,
that.
the north wall is very badly deteriorated from a leak in the gutters. They're not gutters. It's a flat roof, and it's some
Yep.
kind of strange water system up there that
Right.
has never really worked, I guess, because right from the beginning, roof leaks were the curse of the house. Yeah.
As you said, it was leaking all the way inside after
Yeah.
you let go.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. And before we close, is there one more thing you'd like to say, other than to urge people to come?
Well, I'm urging everybody to come.
Great.
Well,
great.
just come by to the Pruyn House
Yeah.
anytime. I mean, there's
Hey.
always someone there, and they'll show you around, and you may find something very interesting there, something that relates to you.
Yeah.
The Historical Society has a room there of displays of things of local historical interest.
Yeah, I echo your comments,
Yeah.
Bob, on how accessible an historic home is, because my wife and I came up from Connecticut about 10 years ago, and we were active in the Historical Society in Glastonbury, the town we lived in.
Okay.
And when you mentioned the ropes in front of the rooms, that's unfortunately what we had to deal with. There were a lot of really good 18th century events, hearth cooking and things of that nature, but it, not quite.
Well,
that's what impressed me about the Pruyn House when I first became a volunteer there.
But just to stretch our time a little bit more, because you got me going on something right now, because when you are looking at things that are collectibles to bring
Right.
into the house, you have to really think of, do I really want people to brush against it
Right.
or,
No,
touch
you're right.
it.
Yeah.
Things like that, because there are really no restrictions there.
It's somewhat durable.
Somewhat durable.
Yeah.
With that note, I'm going to thank you again.
Great, thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Well,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Yeah.
And thank you for joining me on Getting to Know You. I hope you enjoyed today's show and will join me next week. Until then, have a good one.